All right, here we go, Teak. Last year, Bill Belichick and the Pats traded a second-round pick to Atlanta for wideout Mohamed Sanu. Now, yesterday, New England released Sanu after an unproductive season and an uninspired camp. As of now, the Pats receiving corps is led by starters Julian Edelman and N'Keal Harry. But the rest of the group has a combined 73 career receptions.
Oh, man.
So inbounds or out of bounds, Teak. If Cam struggles this year, it will be due more to the talent around him than his play.
I think that's probably very fair. So I'm going to say inbounds to that. And incidentally, Cam Newton was just named the starting quarterback for the New England Patriots to start the 2020 season. So PT's assertion that Jarrett Stidham was going to win that job was debunked finally. Bring in Cam Newton. You know Cam Newton's going to be the starter. He's an MVP, for Christ's sakes. I'm going to say inbounds to that, D-Cell, because we've had this conversation many times around Tom Brady and how, as good as he is and the MVPs that he's won and the Super Bowl runs that he's gone on in New England, it's kind of been with smoke and mirrors. A lot of those, good receivers aren't really, on the level of what you see, say, in Atlanta, who has a Julio Jones, or even in Houston, but now in Arizona, DeAndre Hopkins. Like, he's not surrounded by those type of players. That's why Tom Brady's got to be, salivating at the mouth right now with the weapons he has down in Tampa in his receiving core. Tight ends, wide receivers, running backs, with Leonard Fournette now going down there. So I'm going to say inbounds to that. I think Cam's failures won't be because Cam is not Cam unless he gets hurt. So assuming he's healthy, it'll likely be because there's just not enough around him.
All right, take a little NBA here. During Tuesday's Celtics Game 2 win over the Raptors, guard Marcus Smart was called for flopping after running into Pascal Siakam and sprawling onto the floor. Now, the league has reviewed the blatantly obvious play and has fined Smart $5,000 for the move. So inbounds or out of bounds, Teak, the NBA should levy serious punishments for flopping, including suspensions, to dissuade players from the practice.
I mean, I can't say a suspension, so I gotta say out of bounds. I think the flops are, they're entertaining. They're an entertaining part of the game. So I'm going to say out of bounds, but I don't mind the fines. It's $5,000 is a stiff fine. I mean, it's nothing to these guys because they're making guaranteed money and $15 to $20 million a year, even for the bench guys. But so $5,000 is nothing. But I don't mind it, regardless of what it is, because it's a ridiculous part of the game. It's one of the things that we rail on as Americans watching European soccer when let's say a midfielder gets stepped on and he's rolling on the ground like he's got shot or something. I mean, come on now, get up, go play. But I don't mind this at all. I just don't think that they can go towards suspending players, because what's it hurting? It's kind of entertaining, especially Marcus Smart, who flopped like he was shot out of a cannon. It's pretty epic, actually.
All right, take a little baseball here. Brewers reliever Josh Hader is off to a historic start on the mound. Through his first 12 2/3 innings, spanning 12 games, Hader has not allowed a single hit, setting an MLB record for the most innings without a hit to start a season. Hader has actually walked 10 batters and allowed 2 earned runs off those walks, but still no hits. So inbounds or out of bounds, Teak? With more than half of the shortened season over, it is possible for Hader to go the entire year without allowing a hit.
I gotta say out of bounds to that one too. I mean, as great as Josh Hader has been on the mound, you're going to come up against some really good hitters, and even if it's like your stuff is on, just dumb luck of guys swinging and trickling one down the third baseline is going to create a hit. So I just can't see it happen, even though it's only. How many starts is that going to be for him? Probably 10 or 12 or so starts. I can't imagine him going 60 or so innings without giving up a hit. If he does, I will stand corrected, but that just seems unfathomable for that to happen. So I'm going to say out of bounds.
All right, Teak, as gambling becomes legal in more and more states around the country, many professional sports teams are partnering with casinos and gambling sites. Now, the Chicago Cubs are taking things up a step further, announcing a multi-year partnership with DraftKings that includes installing a sports book and betting windows inside Wrigley Field. So inbounds or out of bounds, Teak, having sports books inside stadiums is a dangerous precedent to set.
I'm going to say out of bounds. I mean, I think it's dangerous, but I don't know what it leads to. It's not going to impact the game. We've had this conversation so many times in over the years in sports, mainly because athletes they're just compensated so much better now. It is not worth it to risk, throwing a game or whatever, bet may be on the line. It's just not worth it. For an athlete, a current athlete, given the amount of money they're making, to risk being banned from the game. So it's not a risk in that regard. So I'm going to say out of bounds, but I do think it's risky for sports fans who think that they can make, an easy buck on a prop bet. And that's kind of what, these daily fantasy sites and other, gambling books are turning to. Like, what's the next pitch? Or is there going to be a home run in the fourth inning? And so you end up, it's easy to spend that money because it feels like, you're not really spending it. I'm going to buy a beer. Okay, I have to throw $10 on whether or not there's going to be a home run hit in the next inning. I'm going to say out of bounds. I don't think it's a bad precedent, but I do think it could be, towing a very interesting line for sports fans.
All right, Teak, we'll end things on a college football note. The number 4 Georgia Bulldogs are on the short list for college football playoff contenders, but like many other teams, have lost a key player for the season. Senior quarterback Jamie Newman, who was expected to be named the starter after transferring from Wake Forest, has opted out of the season to focus on the draft, where he's considered to be a 3rd to 4th round prospect. Former 5-star prospect and USC transfer JT Daniels is the frontrunner to land the job now, but has not been fully cleared to play after suffering an ACL tear last year. So inbounds or out of bounds, Teak, the loss of Newman will seriously impact the Bulldogs' title chances this year.
I got to say inbounds to this one, D-Cell. I mean, when you lose the guy who has spent the entire spring as your starter and, offensive leader, and he walks away this late, and that's what's surprising. And, unlike... I'm trying to think of some of these Farley is the first one. Caleb Farley, the kid from Virginia Tech, who was the first to opt out. I mean, he did that. That was almost 2 months ago. So if you opt out way before the season set, before the roster set, before the lineups, the depth chart is set, it allows your team to adjust. But college football is 2 weeks away. In fact, there's a game on tonight on CBS Sports Network, and there's another one this weekend. We saw one last week as well. So college football is here. And so you're opting out 2 weeks before the start of the season and leaving your team somewhat in the lurch because the backup or perceived backup here in JT Daniels is still recovering from an ACL injury. I mean, that's tough. That's tough to overcome. And I don't know who the starter is going to be down in Georgia. I got to start digging into these college football rosters ahead of the start of the season. But whoever that person is either young or hasn't had a ton of reps with the first team. So that's a little bit odd, man. That's an odd one.
Well, Teak, real quickly here, we talk about, in the question, Georgia's title hopes.
Yeah.
We talked, at length about the NBA bubble and whether, a championship was going to be legitimate.
Mm-hmm.
We have no idea what the college football season is going to look like.
That's right, or if it gets finished.
How different would it be in your mind if something wacky happened in the college football playoff where we get a team that wasn't on the radar to either be in the playoff, win a game in the playoff, win the championship? How weird is that going to look?
Well, that's you know what? That's kind of why I've felt that all off season for college football that you can't have a conventional champion, right? You can't. The college football playoff is they're saying they're going to go forward, but there's 2 conferences that aren't playing, 2 major conferences, and the big players in those conferences too. I'm not talking about the players themselves. I'm talking about the teams as players. Ohio State obviously is always in contention for the for the Final Four. Michigan, at some point, has got to jump the proverbial hurdle and get into that conversation as well. With Jim Harbaugh, obviously the Pac-12. Now they haven't been a powerhouse in any of the last couple of years, but Washington has been in that conversation a couple of times. Oregon was in that conversation last year. So you're missing out on a lot of the big players. So it's going to open up doors for. I'm trying to think of a team that probably wouldn't play in this conversation. Let's say Miami for the ACC. Let's say they get it right and they have a rebound year and they turn more vintage. And because Georgia or some other school loses one of their top players because he opts out at the last minute and they don't have time to adjust to it, now Miami's in the conversation because there's only 3 conferences that are playing for the national championship, the college football playoff. So yeah, it is going to be unconventional. It's going to be odd, and unlike with basketball and even baseball, where I think we've concluded that whoever the champion becomes, it will be legitimate. I think in college football, it's going to feel a little bit askew. This isn't legitimized, even though the college football playoff will deem it to be that way.
Thanks for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe, and don't forget to hit that bell to be notified when we drop fresh content.